Hey, Christian, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us about yourself.
Brian, thank you for having me. My name is Christian Rivera Blas. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, but been here in the Tampa area now for close to 6 years, and very passionate and excited sales professional, as I consider myself to be, and excited to have the opportunity to be here with you to discuss, some different topics.
Cool. How'd you get into sales?
I got into sales officially, let's just call it that way, right? As I transitioned from Puerto Rico to here, the Tampa area. I'm one of the guys that comes off of the training program for enterprise rent-a-car, which is, at least nothing that I ever knew about. But as I moved over here, I actually heard good things about it, and the fact that other companies tend to see a lot of value in the guys that are coming off of that program 2 or 3 years after they've been there. So I maximized that, and I will stand by it 100%. The training that I got there really sharpened the skill sets that I believe I already possess. And from there, it's just, continued to grow.
And what are you selling today?
So literally as of yesterday, I was with a company called Jar Systems. And it's a technology company here based out of Bradenton, Florida. And it specializes in designing technology that helps support the school devices, the Chromebooks and the tablets that are used in classrooms for the learning experience for students. We're the guys that are basically designing the technology that helps store and charge efficiently those devices.
Yep.
As of this Monday, I'm transitioning from the charging and storage over to the device side. So I was fortunate enough to be presented with an opportunity to join one of the three key players that manufacture these devices between Dell, Lenovo, and HP. I'll be joining and transitioning over to the Lenovo side to do the same thing on the education field, but by way of devices that are used in classrooms.
Yeah. And you seem to be interested in culture. What does that mean to you?
So great point. Absolutely. There's a personal interest to culture for me because I've lived it, number one. Number two, it's always been a topic and a passion of mine since I can remember growing up. Back in the third grade, I remember already having ideas about social studies and topics related to that just I'm passionate about. And today, right, as I transition from different professional experiences, I also see the importance of understanding that concept of culture, not just from, Puerto Rico versus United States or United States versus China, but also personally from a family perspective, but also from a professional perspective. What importance does culture hold in our careers, especially in sales? And so that is a topic that I've always seen that tends to perhaps be overlooked or not discussed enough. And I think, you're a great channel to have that discussion.
Cool. So what does it mean to you?
To me, culture means having the ability to, A, understand where you're coming from, but then B, having the ability to relate to where others are coming from.
Yeah.
And embracing, right, the fact that we don't all come from one same place, so we can add value to each other, or we can also diminish value to each other if we don't embrace, right, where we're all coming from, what our experiences are. In simple words, right, I guess that's how I'll define what culture kind of means to me.
Yeah, because I kind of use the word tribe a lot because as mammals, we're tribal creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And you're either part of the tribe or not part of the tribe.
Right.
And
right.
we have that both in our companies and our customer base.
Right.
That's why cold outreach is so hard, is we assume that we're part of their tribe because we want to be.
Exactly. But they're keeping us out.
Right, because you're not part of my tribe.
Exactly.
Yeah. So how does it relate to you in sales as far
in sales, I guess, the point here is, right, that culture in itself as a concept is worthless if you don't understand what the result is of whatever it is you're doing. In my opinion, and in my personal goal, no matter where I'm going, I'm ultimately trying to build relationships. A, because it's who I am, B, because I understand in order to be successful, the relationship is just a component of it, right?
Yeah.
As we all see and read and discuss, right? Nobody likes to buy from whoever they don't like, from whoever they don't trust, blah, blah, blah. Those are all true factors, right? That means that somebody needs to have a relationship with someone in order for things to progress.
Right.
And so in my application of culture, I've just been able to understand the concept and understand how that concept plays an important role in allowing me to build relationships with my team, partners, clients, etc., and be able to maneuver through different scenarios, different conversations, different groups of people, different personalities, etc.
And why is that so important?
So it's important because as we're doing sales, right, and as therefore we're living in a world where there's just so much of what everybody already has.
Yeah.
I constantly ask the question, right? What differentiates me from anyone else? Is it what I'm selling? Well, yes, it's a component, it's a factor, but ultimately I have come to believe in my experience as a sales professional, right? And even before sales, people will buy you. People are buying another person, whoever they like, they trust, they know is looking out for their best interest. People that have things in common. And so therefore, understanding that concept of culture will help you do just that, right? Not understanding it will only alienate you, right, from the tribe. It's going to keep you out because you're not understanding the context of what it takes in order to build that relationship and become part of that tribe.
Right. Yeah. An idea or an example popped in my head. Think about the number of people who go get their hair cut by the same person,
Mm-hmm.
even though there might be 5 available chairs there.
Exactly.
You'll wait hour for that right person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can those other people cut your hair equally as good? Probably.
Right. Right.
But
They're
there's
all
that.
trained professionals.
Right.
They're
They're all
they're
certified. They all got
right.
clippers.
Absolutely.
And we go to certain restaurants and it's just ingrained in us. It's something that
Mm-hmm.
is just, we naturally have. And I think today with technology and everything, people are trying to overlook it and marginalize it.
Right.
But that's the wrong way to view it.
That's why, and as I've inserted myself in the technology world for the last 2 years, right, I also have my serious questions philosophically about just how much technology, how fast technology is growing and how it's looking to displace certain things that are at the end of the day, the human nature is necessary, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, if and I love the video that you've kind of said, right, that you're not invited anymore to graduation parties or anything like that because you discourage anyone from having any other 10-year degree like medicine or anything like that.
Well, if they
I
don't
don't
know what they
disagree.
want to do, right? Going
Right,
to
right.
college just to spend 4 years.
Right. In my opinion, all of these things to come together, right?
Yeah.
All these understandings of cultures and psychology and human behavior. And ultimately also, like you've also said very much, right, is be rewarded for the work that you do put in financially, which is what we
Right.
all work for, right, as well, from a tangible perspective, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's
So,
almost no other career, not no other, but most careers, your income is fixed.
mm-hmm.
It might be negotiated or something. You might get a bonus, but in sales, typically it's not capped,
Right.
and it's really limited to your creativity, hard work, determination, skills.
Right. Which we'll call the intangibles, right? It's a word that I love to use and I can't say it enough, right? Because they are those things that are typically ingrained in you, like you said, and they're hard to teach if they're even teachable. Makes sense?
Yeah, I think I think almost anything is teachable if the other person wants to learn.
Right.
It might be uncomfortable to learn, might take longer to learn, might not be something you want to learn, but I think it can be learned.
Right. That's where the skill versus will comes in, right? Because I think skill we can all develop. It's like you're saying, right? It's that willingness to want to learn, to want to think outside the box, to want to expose yourself to a challenge. which typically we don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's uncomfortable.
And I think skill is a great word, but skill also kind of implies you either have the skill or don't have the skill. I think sales is much more of like a performance,
Right.
because you can know how to do a surgery, right? There's probably millions of doctors who know how to do a surgery, but how many are going to do it effectively? How
Right.
many people are going to get the tumor out without destroying something? How many are going to have the patient live and get all the things that need to come out without taking out too much? I think
Mm-hmm.
sales is that performance, like a
Right.
sport, like a performing art. And I think too many people look at it like riding a bike, where they either can do it or they can't do it.
The thing is that they, in my opinion, right, again, based off experiences of things I've seen, people tend to forget that it's as much a science as it is an art, and vice versa, right? So there are scientific processes to incorporate into the sales process overall, right? Something that I'm strong at, I just enjoy it, and I love it. I know I can say confidently I'm good at this, is the strategizing part of things, right? That is both a scientific and artistic combination of things, right? In order
It
to
is, because you're trying to predict the future. You're
right.
trying to have judgment of where it is and how to get it where you want it to go. And you're dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
People are not
Are
exactly
unpredictable.
unpredictable and
Yeah.
inconsistent.
Right.
They flip flop, priorities change, everything can change around them. And let's go back to the relationship thing, because that is a skill and a performance too. Sometimes you feel
Mm-hmm.
like it. Sometimes you're very charming. Sometimes you're not. You're in a bad mood yourself, or you had a bad
Right.
day, or it's raining, or you're in a rush, and you skip through what the other person wants, and you only focus on what you want. And I think building up that relationship, because you don't spend time with people you don't like.
Right.
You know, you might, unless you have to, right? Take Thanksgiving, for example.
Yeah, it happens. I won't speak to that though.
Me
This is
neither.
recorded and I can get in trouble. Yeah, I get you.
Right. So, and when I talk to a lot of people in my courses, it's like, well, who would you take a call from? And they all say, oh, someone I know and I like, my friend, a family member, and that's our clients. The relationship is them wanting to communicate with us,
Right.
not only when they have to.
Not having to.
Right.
Correct. It's
Because
a
if you,
desire to connect and to have that interaction
right.
that comes almost naturally,
Yeah.
like when you're doing with a friend or your parents or whoever, your children, whatever, you're wanting to engage versus having to.
Having to, because if it's
Mhm.
have to, it's going to be transactional. And then it comes down to price and timing and stuff.
So I'd add to that point, right? Because I can tie it into the whole culture conversation that we're having. Um, and I see it more and more being lost, right? And it has to do not so much with the global culture. I'll call it more the personal culture or the family culture, right? That concept of values that are just, ingrained in you since you're growing up. I'll tell you something that I believe has helped me be very successful, and it pleases me personally. It just makes me feel good as I do it. Is having the common courtesies, and there are things that as we're more fast paced, as we're more demanding, as we want things more instantly, I think they're being lost. But there are such things like good morning to you, a simple hello, a holding a door, a having closing out an email right in the right manner than just versus just typing out a sentence and just being short and cold.
Well,
Those things make a difference.
it's huge. And even being, managing your calendar, showing up on time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you the number of, especially when you do a podcast, people cancel at the last minute or just
Yeah.
don't show up,
Mm-hmm.
even if they've asked to be on the show. And you're like,
This was your idea,
it's
right?
your idea,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Or they just forget to add it to their calendar, or they show up 5 minutes late, and you're like, "Oh, okay, but
But at that point, it's just showing you the importance that they really gave it, right? And
well,
so,
it's arrogance in that their time is more valuable than yours, and they're not considerate of your situation, right?
hmm hmm
You know,
so it all happens. But I will tell you, and things do occur, right? But for the most part, then let's go back to the courtesies.
right?
Brian, something came up. I'm unable to make it. Please understand. I call you personally. I don't hide behind a text. I don't hide behind an email or your inbox on LinkedIn. There's just things that they're common sense. Let's just call it what it is to
Well,
me. But it's surprising how it's not for a lot of people, right?
well, and the challenge I think we have in sales is that we are so pressured to do stuff that's in our own best interest by our managers and our company, that sometimes blinds us
Right.
from the common sense.
Yeah.
We get
Yeah.
monthly,
We become
quarterly,
reactive on things versus
uh, which
logical.
and this is probably the number one thing between great salespeople and good salespeople. Great salespeople don't let that happen. They'll let the deal slip and not ruin the relationship.
Right.
They'll take the beating and the forecast review versus doing something stupid within the account. and
hmm
and they'll even know it's stupid. A B player won't even know it's stupid, and will just, hey, I need this deal to make my bonus. And it's like, well, they don't care about your bonus.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of attitude that since I'm selling, somebody's job must be to buy.
Right. And it's not the way.
Right.
And I'll tell you even more, right? To speak to those challenging scenarios, there are even instances in which, because of the relationship that you've been able to build, you can even have those conversations where you would never think, like you're saying, right? Don't Sometimes we'll let a deal slip or this and that, and we're in those positions. But also, let's just, we're all in business to run business, to do good business, right? Do good by our customers, but also do good for ourselves. And having the right relationship will sometimes even let you be fully transparent with that customer and say, hey, the way you want to go about certain things here, it's a win for you. Honestly, it's coming at a loss for me. I value our relationship. I want it to be ongoing and long term. What can we do to be in a position where we're both walking out of the table, in a winning position? I think that the real customers, the right customers, and the right people that you just connect with, the people that have that relationship because you've shown them you're real, you're about benefiting them, but also yourself, because that's what we're all in business for. I think they value that, they appreciate that, and they allow you to have those conversations without it ever turning into a bigger issue, and always be focused on looking for the resolution of things. So
Right.
far, I've had that experience, and I've been successful, and I've been lucky, right? Because I show people that I look out for them. Um,
And that's building trust. You're showing
right.
that their interest is more important than yours.
hmm
And trust is the bandwidth of communication. Low
Right.
trust, low bandwidth. High
Right.
trust, high bandwidth. And that high bandwidth, what I call partners in crime, where you have that relationship with at least one person within the account where you're both telling the truth.
Right.
You're saying, look, if you get this done in the next 90 days, I can get you some crazy deal. If you can't, I understand, but just let me know. And the
Right.
other person is like, I don't know how to get it done. These are the people, this is what they care about. Let's work together on this.
Right.
They want something, you want something, and you're transparent about helping each other get it done,
Right.
instead of send me a quote, and they don't open the quote, and then you check back in 15 days and it's like, they still, oh yeah, I sent it to my manager. They haven't sent it to anybody. It dies on the vine. And what you brought up is when you're talking about what they care about, that's the real selling. It's not
Right.
talking about your product, who you are and what you do. They don't care. They can find that on the web. What they want to know is, how are you going to solve something for me? How are you going to help me make
Right.
my job better, my career better? And when you do that, those conversations can go on forever.
Right.
They'll take your call. That is the want to talk to you. And it's not about baseball or golf or movies or comedy. It's about what they care about. It might be
Right.
about those things, but if you show that you're helping them. Now, what gave you this viewpoint on sales? Going through two different cultures?
Well, it's just, I believe so, having been exposed growing up, right? When we moved, I was in Puerto Rico until my third grade, from third up to sixth, and we're in Iowa.
Is there any
Okay.
difference?
There's no difference at all, but about 32 degrees, we left Puerto Rico. I want to say it was on a January. And it was, cool Puerto Rico weather, freezing weather to us is 79, 80.
Yeah.
And we must have gotten to Iowa and it was 32 below getting off the plane. And so that was shocking in itself. But, just being exposed to scenarios where, I'm around people that are not like me, the people that you can get up and look at every day and you feel somewhat are like you, right? It's funny because in the Latino culture, right, we understand, right? There's many Hispanic countries, but not everybody that speaks Spanish comes from the same place. We're exposed to those conversations often.
Yeah.
And I guess just growing up, I took an interest in understanding my own identity and understanding other people's identity and just embracing it, liking it, enjoying it.
Yeah.
And using it as a tool to build good relationships, right? And that's why I say to this day, I kind of brag about my cell phone. There's nowhere that I go that I don't have somebody's phone that I can pick up the phone and call, no matter where in the U.S. I am. And that's a good feeling when I got people kind of thing, right? Because
what I like about that is that you looked at the positive effect of it,
right?
Meaning that you didn't look like everybody else, which means that you had to kind of extend yourself to communicate with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I heard this interview of this salesperson who felt that they were so disadvantaged. And I was like, okay, what happened? And I kept waiting. And the person went to a top 3 Ivy League school.
They're at a disadvantage for sure.
And then it gets better. And then they went to the number 1 prep school in the world.
No, it's impossible.
And I'm like, okay, granted, you've had, other issues. We all do, right?
Yeah. That's not to discredit anything that they have gone through. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
But I think everybody, if you look at it that way, if you focus on the crutch instead of what you can do with it, or clearly this person had, to go to these schools is gifted intellectually, right? Has to be,
and also financially. I mean, you not just anybody walks through the door. Yeah.
Right. And to look at those gifts as not that important or not that valuable and leverage them and only look at the other side. And I got friends like this and I'm like, oh. And I think most salespeople, if they're not succeeding, they look at something outside of them instead of how do I leverage this?
And that's where I have to bring it back to culture, man, because they're how can I say it? Those are things that we have learned somewhere. And that's where I will say, right, that you've been somewhere that exposed you to develop that mentality, that mindset. And that's where there is a cultural impact, right? Because if you're coming from a place where you feel there's limited resources and this and that, you could develop that mentality. Right. And on the same token, right, if this gentleman is in a place where, regardless of his great background, right, but he's in a place where he feels limited because he's not seen, because the results aren't seen just yet, he's still going through the motions, then that he's been somewhere that culturally has impacted his mindset, and now he's just stuck. He's on a funk that he thinks he probably can't get out of.
Yeah.
And so therefore that there's an influence in that there
Well,
in us as well.
share with us your mindset, like when you first went to school, because you're going from, I've been to Iowa, right? I've been to
Hmm.
most parts of the country, and believe me, the country is completely different. You go from, New York to Florida to Texas to California.
Yeah.
It's like a different country. How did
Right.
you adapt? And what mindset did you have?
Well, I was fortunate enough, to be young enough to adjust.
Yeah.
Right, transitions like this when you're 30 versus when you're 3, two different things, right? In fact, I forgot Spanish completely when I was living in Iowa. When I got back to Puerto Rico, they called me gringo because I forgot how to speak Spanish, right? So that just shows you the level of insertion that I had into the culture, that I lost my main language. And I speak English today perfectly, or almost perfectly, right? And it's the main language I personally use. Number two, I also believe that I'm fortunate to have parents that also look for ways to expose me to being educated,
Yeah.
right? I have 2 master's degree. One is in a field called museum studies. Don't ask, but it's just a passion. And you know why it's a passion? Because my parents, I recall, especially being in Iowa, we would do road trips to Chicago, to Virginia, up to New York, and everywhere we would go, we stop at a museum, we'd learn about the local culture, that type of thing. And it just became something that I found value and importance in.
But
Um,
but you must
Go
have had a
ahead.
mindset thing where, because
Yep.
I'm sure the first day you showed up at school, you weren't getting high fives.
It wasn't quite that way.
Or did anyone
Uh,
care?
I want to say my record of it, my memories of it is I was actually more welcoming, and was being more welcomed, as I recall it, right? And I'm fortunate for that, because I know not everyone has that experience. I maybe one time I had a negative experience where some ladies maybe have said something like, between me and my brother playing in a department store, and we said something in Spanish, and she was like, you're supposed to be speaking English or something like that. But outside of that, we never really had a negative experience where we felt kind of like put out. Now, I'll tell you my mindset today. My mindset today, as all those experiences have shaped who I am today, right? I'm driven and hungry always for opportunity. So let's look at myself 6 years ago, right? 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I was a teacher in Puerto Rico making no more than $20,000 a year. High school level, working hard, helping our future, right? Learn and grow. And I was 23 and 24 years old at that time. Okay. And I remember thinking to myself, I said, listen, am I going to do this for 30 years? There's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. I'm
Nothing
sorry,
wrong
but
with
I
it.
just
Yeah.
know, I have so much more to give.
Yeah.
Where's the next opportunity at? And so from there, I went into my master's degrees. I've always been entrepreneurial. So I said, where's the next step at? I put together my own consulting company. I started a tourism consulting company. I worked on projects in Puerto Rico worth millions of dollars that helped shape tourism and educate the communities about their personal cultures and their histories and all this stuff. As I transitioned over to the US at Enterprise, there's always opportunities to move up. Outside of Enterprise, again, look at this. Yesterday, I literally ended my job to start in a new place
Yeah.
that's providing me a new challenge. I'm always looking for where the opportunity is, because I understand what it is to come from a scenario where you have a choice. You stay comfortable, but you stay in that job for 30 years. That's not going to give you the lifestyle you would like to have, or you get yourself out of the comfort zone.
Right.
You're visualizing things. You can see yourself further than where you are at the moment, and then you begin to plan and strategize. Where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to help me advance? And always, Brian, I'll tell you, this is for me. This is big. Is as I move forward, always look back. Who can I bring with me? Who can I help be successful together with me? Because my vision of myself is being at a point where I can have all my loved ones around me at a table and saying, you know what? Everybody's accomplished things and we're not done. There's way much more to go get. So it's opportunity that personally drives me, right? And I'm blessed and thankful for it. And there's another component to this culture thing, right? And without getting off topic, but there's also a spiritual component, in my opinion. And I was recently listening to James Ryan Miller, who you had on your show, right? And he was one of the few people that I've actually heard openly say, right, that he's a man of faith, and that also plays a big component in his drive and his vision and his mission. And I believe in the same thing, right? I can't take action without having faith first, in my personal opinion. And that vision and that drive, that hunger, that desire to help, I think is fed to me spiritually, and I just execute, by way of actions here in daily life.
Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where
Awesome.
can people go to follow you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Christian Rivera Blas. Just to say it right, we use both last names in Puerto Rico. That's a Rivera Blas. My last name is not Blas, it's Rivera Blas, right? Rivera is not the middle name, is what I'm trying to say, right? So
Okay.
you can look me up that way. That comes up often. That's why I say it. You can find me on LinkedIn that way. And my email is chrisriverablas@gmail.com. Very easy to get at me. I try to have these conversations with local entrepreneurs, business owners here in the Tampa Bay area. And I'm always, again, one to share knowledge. So if there's anybody out there that has found value in this conversation and others, I'd be more than happy to collaborate.